Hare Krishna Prabhu. The class will be held today?
Hare Krishna, I hope. I don't know. I sent maybe, yes, people are coming. If enough people comes, should be.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Dandavat Pranam. Jai Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
So we can,
Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, we can resume. We had a 2 weeks break since last week. Was not very feasible. Do we still remember where we stopped? Let me go to this Bhagavat Subodhini. Then we can, if you remember, we're in the last chapter of this canto, chapter 15, in which Narada Muni is continuing his instructions for the Grihastha ashram. In previous chapter was instructions, ideal family life, basically instructions for Grihasthas, and then he's continuing with these instructions, and Srila Prabhupada entitled this chapter Instruction for Civilized Human Beings, because it's for everybody, not only for Grihasthas. So you see this here, the first set of shlokas, some rules for Vedic rituals are giving them, but with the idea that these rules, they could be transcended, they should be transcended, and then avoiding adharma, irreligion, and all during the time one also should cultivate self-satisfaction, be satisfied in all circumstances. And now we are in the part that we actually last class was about dealing with the different anarthas, lust, greed, anger, and taking shelter of guru and properly relating to guru. So here, if you remember, gradation of Brahma, different kind of brahmanas, karmanishta, tapanishta, swadhyanishta, jnananishta, charity, whom to give charity, and then inviting brahmanas while performing sacrifices. One should not invite too many, offering prasada to the deity and to the guests, never offer meat, and things like that. And then we heard about adharma, different types of adharma, starting with vidharma, paradharma, basadharma, upadharma, chaladharma. And then in the last class we heard about lust, anger, greed, fear, lamentation, illusion, pride, how to conquer the obstacles in yoga by practicing Mauna, then what to do with the himsa, with the envy and violence, suffering caused by others, Adhyatmika klesha, Adibhautika klesha, sleep, Rajatamas, Sattva, different modes of nature, or the influences. And now we came to the part where the importance of bona fide guru is stressed. And we are listening that. Sloka 27. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gyanati Mirandasya Vyaranjana Shalaka Chakshu Om Militam Yena Tasmu Shri Guru Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namni Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pashta Deshatarine. So I'll start reading. Ishavai Bhagavan Sakshat Ishavai Bhagavan Sakshat Pradhana Purusheshvara Yogeshwarair Vimrigyangrir Lokoya Manyati Nram. Translation: The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is the master of all other living entities and of the material nature. His lotus feet are sought and worshipped by great saintly persons like Vyasa. Nonetheless, there are fools who consider Lord Krishna an ordinary human being. So the example of Lord Krishna's being the Supreme Personality of Godhead is appropriate in regard to understanding the spiritual master. The spiritual master is called Sivaka Bhagavan, the Sarvitra Personality of Godhead, and Krishna is called Sevya Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is to be worshipped. The spiritual master is the worshipper God, whereas the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the worshipable God. This is the difference between the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Another point, Bhagavad Gita, which constitutes the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is presented by the spiritual master as it is, without deviation. Therefore, the absolute truth is present in the spiritual master. As clearly stated in text 26, Jnana Deepa Prade, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives real knowledge to the entire world, and the spiritual master, as the representative of the Supreme Godhead, carries the message throughout the world. Therefore, on the absolute platform, there is no difference between the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If someone considers the Supreme Personality, Krishna or Lord Ramachandra, to be an ordinary human being, this does not mean that the Lord becomes an ordinary human being. Similarly, if the family members of the spiritual master, who is the bona fide representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, consider the spiritual master an ordinary human being, this does not mean that he becomes an ordinary human being. The spiritual master is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore one who is very serious about spiritual advancement must regard the spiritual master in this way. Even a slight deviation from this understanding can create disaster in the disciples' Vedic studies and austerities. Vijayanagari Thakur comments, but the sons and father of the Guru will consider him a human. How can the student then think of him as the Lord? Bhagavan Krishna or Rama is definitely the Supreme Lord, but people who appeared at the time of Lord's descent think of him as human. But how can he become an ordinary human being? Similarly, some may think of the Guru as human, but how can he be? So yeah, even when Lord Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, many actually, they consider him just, very powerful prince of the Yadu dynasty. How many of them knew him as the Supreme Lord. Yadus, they knew him as Super Soul, Paramatma, but they didn't really have most of them, they didn't have a conception of him as Bhagavan, the ultimate absolute truth. Then what to speak of ordinary ignorant people? They thought he's just, one of the Yadus, very powerful one, but one of the kings. So if even about Krishna people can think as ordinary, how much more easy is to start thinking of one's guru as a human being. You see, your guru has, some bodily problems. He has a headache, this and that. And you think, oh, well, he's just like me. But this is not the proper conception. If you accepted that person as a guru and he's a bona fide guru, then you should always, in your mind, have a conception that he's representative of Krishna. And that's why he is on the same transcendental level and he should be given the same respect. So regardless which level he is in, but because you accepted him as representative of God, you're obliged to give him respect as you would give to God. Of course, it doesn't change, the nature of Jiva Tattva becoming Vishnu Tattva. It's not that the Guru becomes God, although Prabhupada uses here the word worshipper God. I will not, Prabhupada can use that word, but I will not use the word God at all. Because even in 70s, there are a few disciples of Prabhupada who came up with the theory that Prabhupada was God, actually. Somehow, who was it? Brahmananda, Vishnu Jam, few other sannyasis. And they start preaching it. Prabhupada is God. And when Prabhupada heard it, he became very, very angry. And he basically, I don't want to say expelled them from ISKCON, but he told them just to go to a new place and preach and not to go to any established temples anymore. So he was very strict in this regard. Jiva is never God. Guru is never God, but he's representative of God because he's teaching about Krishna. Say Krishna Tattva Vedas, say Guru Hoy. Yeah, one who knows the science of Krishna is a guru. And if you're learning about Krishna from such person, then you accept him as a guru, as good as God. But it doesn't mean that he becomes God. Sevaka Bhagavan and Savior Bhagavan. Yeah, interesting how fools can consider even Krishna or Lord Ramachandra ordinary human beings. I guess, and Jesus also, they consider him also ordinary human being. That's why, if the Bible is correct, they put him on a cross or this or that. Although he was a representative of God. Does anybody has any comments or questions on this? If not, we can continue reading. Dhanushi Maharaj, would like to read? You can read. You don't need to summarize if you don't wish. You can just read.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I will do. Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. Sadvarga Samyamaikanta Sarva Ninyama Kundana Tadanta Yadi Yogan Avayu Shrama Vaha. Ritualistic ceremonies, regulative principles, austerities, and the practice of yoga are all meant to control the senses and mind. But even after one is able to control the senses and mind, if he does not come to the point of meditation upon the Supreme Lord, all such activities are simply labor and frustration. Purport. One may argue that one may achieve the ultimate goal of life, realization of the super soul, by practicing the yoga system and ritualistic performances according to the Vedic principles, even without staunch devotion to the spiritual master. The actual fact, however, is that by practicing yoga, one must come to the platform of meditation, meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in the scriptures, Dhyananavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pasyanti Yam Yoginaha. Srimad Bhagavatam 12.13.1. A person in meditation achieves the perfection of yoga practice when he can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By various practices, one may come to the point of controlling the senses, but simply controlling the senses doesn't bring one to the substantial conclusion. However, by staunch faith in the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one not only controls the senses, but also realizes the Supreme Lord. Yasya deve para bhaktir, yata deve tata guru, tasya ete yatita hi artaha, pakashante mahat manaha. Only unto great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of the Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Svetasvata Upanishad 6.23. It is further stated, Tusyaham Sarvabhutana Bhutama Guru Shushru Saya and Taranti and Anyo Bhavarnavam. Simply by rendering service to the spiritual master, one crosses the ocean of nescience and returns home back to Godhead. Thus, he gradually sees the Supreme Personality. Thus, he gradually sees the Supreme Lord face to face and enjoys life in association with the Lord. The ultimate goal of yoga is to come in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless this point is achieved, one so-called yoga practice is simply labor without any benefit. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, conquest of lust and other obstacles which is accomplished by Guru Bhakti is actual result of various practices mentioned in the scriptures. All the rules and regulations such as accumulating performance of sacrifices, dedication to controlling the six senses, if they do not lead to meditation on the Lord, are useless. By Guru Bhakti, one conquers the lust and attains the Lord, for the Lord says, Naham iya prajati biyam tapaso pasamena va tusyam sarva bhutatma guru shushru yaha. The soul of all beings am not as satisfied by ritual worship. Brahminical initiation, penances, or self-discipline as I am by faithful service rendered to one spiritual master. Srimad Bhagavatam 80.34. Non arta kuvida brahman varnashrama vatam hiya yemaya guna vacha taranti anyo Bhavarna Vam. Certainly, O Brahmana, of all the followers of the Varnashrama system, those who take advantage of the words I speak in my form as a spiritual master. Certainly, O Brahmana, of all the followers of the Varnashrama system, those who take advantage of the words I speak in my form as a spiritual master and thus easily cross over the ocean of material existence best understand their own true welfare. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.80.33. Similarly, one conquer the sense by rules and then attain the Lord, because one becomes completely dedicated to these processes, Taud, Tad, and Fad, Tad, and Taha. These processes do not produce meditation on the Lord. Yogan, what to speak of attaining the Lord? Since they do not accomplish this, they are useless labor. What doubt is there about this?
So yeah, point is being made here that all processes for spiritual realization, for self-realization, they should have a goal. If that goal is not there, that process is not spiritual at all. Nowadays, we have so many types of yoga, Bikram yoga, this yoga, that yoga. There's even beer yoga. People are doing yoga and drinking beer. So laughing yoga and so many of new inventions. But actually, it has nothing to do with the original purpose of yoga or any spiritual path. The purpose is to come to the stage of samadhi. This is stage where one's mind is completely absorbed in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If the samadhi is not there, and you are doing asanas and pranayama, that could be good for health, but it's not really what is yoga meant for. These asanas are meant, to prepare the body in order to be able to sit for a long time and meditate. Otherwise, if the body is not fit, it will be very difficult, to sit. And then the control of the breath or pranayama is meant to control the mind, because mind and prana are very closely connected. So to control of the prana flow in the body to different nadis, the mind is controlled. And that again is not the goal in itself. This is just a mean to be able to focus the mind on the Lord in the heart. And then once the mind becomes completely absorbed in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one's love for Krishna awakens. And this is the goal. Not just doing some asanas or rituals like other processes, some rituals of jnana, sankhya, or whatever it is. So we should always, ask ourselves, what is my goal in doing this? Before chanting, for example, we should ask, why I'm chanting? For whom? For what? If I just mindlessly pick my japa and start, speaking some names without, being clear of my intention, the result won't be that good as it would be when you do it in full consciousness, with the proper motivation, proper intention, to please Krishna, to focus mind on Krishna. So yeah, that's the point that I see here, that the goal should not be forgotten. And sometimes we are so much caught in doing things, but we forget about the goal, which is we should be careful about that. All right, who is next there? Shantirupa Mataji, you'd like to read?
Yes, Prabhu. Verse number 29. Yatha vartadayo hi artha yogasyartham na bibrati anarthaya bhave yusma purtam ishtam tatha satah. Translation. As professional activities or business profits cannot help one in spiritual advancement, but are the source of material entanglement, the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies cannot help anyone who is not a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. If one becomes very rich through his professional activities, through trade or through agriculture, this does not mean that he is spiritually advanced. To be spiritually advanced is different from being materially rich. Although the purpose of life is to become spiritually rich, unfortunate men, misguided as they are always engaged in trying to become materially rich. Such material engagements, however, do not help one in the actual fulfillment of the human mission. On the contrary, material engagements lead one to be attracted to many unnecessary necessities, which are accompanied by the risk that one may be born in a degraded condition. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.18, ऊर्ध्वं गच्छन्ति सत्त्वस्था मध्ये तिष्ठन्ति राजसा जघन्य गुणवृत्तिस्था अधो गच्छन्ति तामसा. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Especially in this Kali Yuga, material advancement means degradation and attraction to many unwanted necessities that create a low mentality. Therefore, Jaganya Guna Vrittistha. Since people are contaminated by the lower qualities, they will lead their next lives either as animals or in other degraded forms of life. Making a show of religion without Krishna consciousness may make one popular in the estimation of unintelligent men, but factually, such a materialistic display of spiritual advancement does not help one at all. It will not prevent one from missing the goal of life. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, an example is given. Just as occupants like farming, though producing wealth and enjoyment, do not produce liberation, the goal of yoga and are thus useless for attaining the ultimate goal. So sacrifices performed by a person who is not a devotee also do not produce any result. So in this verse, the main point is that anyone who is not a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, no matter how many Vedic ritualistic ceremonies he may perform, he cannot get out of the material entanglement or any spiritual advancement. So Prabhupada says that one may get rich or be very smart in his profession or anything, but to be spiritually advanced, one has to be Krishna conscious, or so otherwise everything is a material entanglement. So it is given in the Bhagavad Gita that those who are situated in the mode of goodness gradually go up to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to hellish planets. So Actually, if you work very hard for any occupation, then you tend to develop contaminated consciousness, which is not at all good for any spiritual advancement. So, better to avoid working hard and spend some time practicing some kind of spiritual activity. So
Thank
that,
you. Thank you. Yes.
just 1 second, I had come.
I wanted to say something more.
Sorry, I had to go to the door.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Thank you. Yes, so the point is that by performing varnashrama duties, one will not go back to Godhead. So the purpose of life is not varnashrama. It's a system, of course, established by Krishna to help regulate our nature and character. But just varnashrama duties, varna and ashrama without bhakti, without devotional service, will not bring us anywhere. But at least it is civilized human life. And if you strictly follow it, you will not born. You will not be born as an animal. You'll get another chance. But just by practicing varnashrama, you'll not go back to Godhead. And sometimes we hear some preachers they're stressing so much, varnashrama, cow protection, agricultural how's it called? Uh, that we don't depend on others to produce our own food. This is all good, but by these activities, we will not go back to Godhead. If I just work all day hard in a field or take care of the cows, and I don't have time to chant the holy name of Krishna, I have no time to hear the Bhagavatam, then what is the point of all this hard work? A little food or little milk? What is the point? It's not going to bring us back to Krishna. And whole point was being made that Varnashrama will give us more time, If simple living, high thinking. The idea is, it's nice idea actually, that you have a lot of time actually left. You do little gardening, planting this, that, and then the rest of the day you have for Krishna consciousness. But somehow those who tried, I heard few experiences. They say it's so hard that they don't have any time from the morning. You have to go to take care of the cows and so many things that throughout the day you just work hard and you hardly finish chanting 60 rounds. What to speak about doing other things? So why is it not working? But it's not working because the system is not set up from the top to the bottom. It's just some individuals or small, groups of people trying to have an ashrama in the society where everything else has nothing to do with the varnashrama self-sustainability. And then it's very difficult to do it if you have to do everything yourself. If it would be, set up from the top of the society, uh, proper structure would be there, and then there will be proper division of labor. Everybody would have to do a little bit of work, and then there will be enough time. But if you are the only one, or just few of you who have to do everything, then you're left without any time, and that's not good for your spiritual life. Okay. Shailesh Prabhu would like to read?
Yes, brother. Will you do the Sanskrit, Prabhu?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yaschitha vijaye yatha syan nisango aparigraha eko vivikta sharano bhikshur vaikshya vitashana.
Translation. One who desires to conquer the mind must leave the company of his family and live in a solitary place, free from contaminated association. To maintain the body and soul together, he should beg as much as he needs for the bare necessities of life. This is the process of conquering the agitation of the mind. One is recommended to take leave of his family and live alone, maintaining body and soul together by begging alms and eating only as much as needed to keep himself alive. Without such a process, one cannot conquer lusty desires. Sannyasa means accepting life of begging, which makes one automatically very humble and meek and free from lusty desires. In this regard, the following verse appears in the Smriti literature.
Dvandva hatasya garhastham dhyana banghaadikaranam lakshayitva grihis pashtam sanyasit avicharayan.
In this world of duality, family life is the cause that spoils one's spiritual life or meditation. Specifically, understanding this fact, one should accept the order of sannyas without hesitation. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. This verse explains the process of liberation for the householder. If the householder has association with his family, he cannot conquer lust, although he tries. He should give up that association and live by begging. One who endeavors to control the mind, endeavors for the control of the mind should become a beggar. Smriti says,
We already heard this with Prabhupada, so we can skip.
the householder, seeing that such life filled with dualities is the cause of breaking his meditation on the Lord, should renounce without such consideration. So here, it's quite a short message that if one desires to conquer the mind, that we have to basically take leave of the family and live in a solitary place free from contaminated association and beg as much as is required. And Srila Prabhupada re-emphasizes that if one wants to take their meditation seriously, then accepting sannyas and accepting begging is the only way of doing so, because by begging one automatically becomes humble and meek and free from lusty desires. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur re-emphasizes the same fact.
Yeah, thank you. So, life of begging. Yeah, that's nice if in ISKCON, if you're sannyasi, you don't really need to beg. You're given much more than you need in reality. But it would be, real challenge to go and beg somewhere where nobody knows you. Nobody, But in Vedic society, people had respect for sannyasis. So if they would see sannyasi on the door, they would give him chapati, little milk, this or that. But nowadays, how much of that culture is left? So where are you going to beg? You can beg only in devotee society because devotees have some culture and they know that sannyasi should be given something. Otherwise, yeah, in Braj, in Vrindavan, still there are some sadhus who do this madhukhari, go from door to door, but they also don't go to random doors. They know, some houses where the householders are pious, where grihastas are pious, and they know them, and they go and they get their chapatis or whatever from these houses. They don't go randomly anywhere here and there because yeah, but this is the process that is supposed to make us humble. Of course, in this sannyas, I don't think can make anybody humble because everybody is falling and giving your obeisances and donations. It's not the best way to become humble.
Prabhu, I have a question here.
Yeah.
This is controversial, but I mean, we, of course, from a selected few very elevated sannyasis, which we do have, we also find that there's a mixture of sannyas order within ISKCON, as you rightly say, are essentially living a life of relative luxury, first-class travel, sort of, and it's a relatively, from a material perspective, I should say, it's a relatively comfortable life. Does that make their preaching compromised, or does that make their meditation compromised in real terms in today's world?
Yeah, it's something that is not really favorable for their spiritual life, but it's very favorable for their material life and life of luxury. That's true, because if they get so much money and they're just depositing into accounts and use it for traveling with business class and build houses and villas, this is not what the sannyas meant for. But somehow the system is such that it's in ISKCON, it's a VIP. Somebody who gets sannyas, immediately he becomes VIP. Although till yesterday, when he was a brahmachari, nobody really paid much attention to him. And as soon as he gets the danda, everybody just falls down. We are trained in that way, and it became a social custom. So actually, to take sannyas in ISKCON means, to secure yourself for life, not really to become dependent on Krishna. So it basically defeats the purpose of the sannyas. Although the purpose is also preaching. So if it facilitates preaching, then and if that person in sannyas order is really preaching and doing hard and earning his bread, as they say, then you can say he deserves, but he should not be accumulating all this. Then he should be also giving and distributing to others. Prabhupada, he would never, save and accumulate. When they would give him one watch, he would give another away. And the money immediately he would spend for printing books and this and that. He wouldn't make huge bank balances. And now many sannyasis are, just rich in terms of bank balances and properties they possess. So it's, I would say, yes, slight deviation. But this is because it's only for a rare few. Also, the guru, being a guru in ISKCON, is also for very selected few, and that's why they get all the glory, all the donations, and everything else, all VIP status. But then that person in that position might not be really on the topmost level. But still, for his disciples, he's a guru, and they should treat him as a guru. That's okay, but doesn't mean that for everybody else he's a guru. And I think the solution would be to open, to stop regularizing it too much. Who becomes guru? Who doesn't become? The institution should not get involved in that too much. And there is one group of devotees headed by, I think, Sri Krishna Dharma Prabhu, Urmila Mataji, and few others who year after year they are trying to push through GBC that proposal of deregulation, that GBC should not rubber stamp who is guru. Let people choose whomever they want from those who are in the good step, of course. And I think that opening would somewhat dissolve this VIP, high VIP status of selected few individuals. In regard to sannyas, yeah, they became much more strict. Sannyas ministry became much more strict in giving sannyas after we had not some, but many fall downs of sannyasis in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, but culture is such that as soon as people see the sannyas cloth, immediately they think the person must be self-realized. I used to think like that when I was very younger. But of course, after some time, you recognize that the cloth has nothing to do with the spiritual advancement. So it requires some maturity. Yes, Prabhu, the situation is like that, and I don't know how and when it can be changed. Do you have any thoughts on this yourself?
No, Prabhu, clearly it's an issue that's going to continue and presumably get somewhat worse, because at least in the initial stages, Prabhupada was regulating how it all happened, and who was gurus and who was not, and now you have, so-called. I mean, I don't mean to be offensive, but potentially so-called gurus who are then nominating other gurus who may not necessarily be, sort of self-realized souls. I mean, I think there are many individuals in our organizations who are self-realized souls who are not on that platform and who are not initiating, but don't necessarily get the recognition, whilst those who might not be, because they're wearing the garb of a sannyasi, get that platform when perhaps they are not worthy of that. But that's, as I said, I'm not. This is just an observation that it's only likely to get worse unless we kind of normalize it to as you earlier said, there are a group of people who are perhaps pushing for people to elect who they feel are elevated rather than a group of individuals.
Yeah, it became somewhat elite club, for elite, for small number of selected people who manage to climb to the ranks of institution to the position of either sannyasi or guru. So it's a elite club society. So hopefully, yeah, we hope that in the future it might be somewhat dissolve this elitism, and it can be open to more people. And
Is it the same group that decides initiating guru as opposed to sannyas, or is it different? Because obviously there are initiating gurus who are not sannyasis. So.
yeah, there are, but not so many, again, 100 maybe, or 100 something gurus. There is a guru committee, but again, this is the same people, on the guru committee, see the same people, on the sannyas committee, see the same people. It's a small number of people who are selecting this, and that's why it's becoming elite club, because they are selecting those, whom they think for their friends or who are recommended by their friends, and like that. But yeah, what can be done? I cannot do much about it. And those who are not part of elite club, they can be happy that they have opportunity to be humble because they're not VIPs. They can just be humble, and they can make spiritual advancement also, and even much more actually than those who are in the elite positions. These VIP positions are just good for material advancement, but in reality, for spiritual life, not really, unless they facilitate preaching.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If possible, Prabhu, at the end of the session, when you stop recording, I have a question to ask, which I think is not appropriate for it to be recorded.
Sure, okay, I'll reserve 5 minutes at the end for that, and I'll stop recording.
Thank you, Prabhu.
So Gunaraj Prabhu would like to continue reading.
Yes, Prabhu. Dese suchau same rajan samstapayapsanam atmanah stiram sukham samam tasmin astir astir asitarjvanga omiti. Translation. My dear king, in a sacred and holy place of pilgrimage, one should select a place in which to perform yoga. The place must be level and not too high or low. There one should sit very comfortably, being steady and equipoised, keeping his body straight, and thus begin chanting the Vedic pranava. Purport. Generally, the chanting of Om is recommended because in the beginning one cannot understand the personality of Godhead. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11, Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yet jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabdayate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan. Unless one is fully convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has the tendency to become an impersonalist yogi, searching for the Supreme Lord within the core of his heart. Dhyana vasista tadgatena manasa pashyantiyam yogina. Srimad Bhagavatam 12.13.1. Here the chanting of Omkara is recommended because in the beginning of transcendental realization, instead of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one may chant Omkara Pranava. There is no difference between the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and Omkara because both of them are sound representations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. In all Vedic literatures, the sound vibration Omkara is the beginning. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The difference between chanting Omkara and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is that the Hare Krishna mantra may be chanted without consideration of the place or the sitting arrangements recommended in Bhagavad Gita 6.11. Suchau deshe pratistapya stiram asanam atmanah nati uchritam nati nicham chali chailajna kushottaram. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should neither be too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The Hare Krishna mantra may be chanted by anyone without consideration of the place or how one sits. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has openly declared, Nemita Smaranena Kalaha. In chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, there are no particular injunctions regarding one's sitting place. The injunction Nemita Smaranena Kalaha includes Desha, Kala and Patra, place, time and the individual. Therefore, anyone may chant the Hare Krishna mantra without consideration of the time and place. Especially in this age, Kali Yuga, it is very difficult to find a suitable place according to the recommendations of Bhagavad Gita. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, however, may be chanted at any place and any time, and this will bring results very quickly. Yet, even while chanting the Hare Krishna Mantra, one may observe regulative principles. Thus, while sitting and chanting, one may keep his body straight, and this will help one in chanting the process. Otherwise, one may feel sleepy. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura comments, he should keep his body straight and chant Om. So here we can see that the chanting of Omkara mantra is recommended in the general spiritual practice, because the person may not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead immediately. So, but at the same time, this the sound vibration, both are same. Omkara and Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, they are all sound representations of the Lord. The only difference is, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, the difference in the practicality. While for chanting the Omkara, one has to go to a sacred place and arrange a proper sitting and other conditions. Whereas for Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one can chant anytime, anywhere, at any place, anywhere, without any restriction of the time, place, and circumstances. So for in the Kali Yuga, the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra is the most effective and easiest way to achieve spiritual realization. But at the same time, by sitting straight, one can stay alert and focused. So that is the essence.
Thank you, Ganaraj Prabhu. There is a story of Gopal, small boy, who
Yes.
who asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu why he's holding stone.
Yes.
And then the Lord told him, well, I'm going to unclean place, so I don't want to contaminate the mantra. But the boy told him, well, Maha mantra should be chanted everywhere. There is no restrictions of time, place, and circumstances. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirmed, yes, this is correct. You are guru. You are Gopal guru. And that boy, he later became Acharya, famous Gopal guru, Goswami. We had Dhyana Chandra Goswami as his disciples. Yeah, but we want to make sure that our chanting is not spaced out, that is attentive. That's why some practice, like sitting straight, you hear sometimes Prabhupada in his japas tells to others who are around him, sit straight. And also Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he mentions that one should very clearly pronounce each and every word, that this will help to focus the mind. And sometimes somebody is producing some, murmuring sound that is not really clear, and that's not very good in terms of focusing the mind, unless one came, to the level that he can chant in the mind. But in the beginning, it's always good, to pronounce, very steadily, clearly, with the proper pronunciation, sit straight, or if you want to fall asleep, then it's better to walk up and down, but not too much here and there, and then looking around. This is also bringing distraction. Somehow or other, we need to focus properly on the transcendental sound of the holy name. Okay, I think we made a round. I'll read again. Pranapanau sanirudhyat pura kumbhakare chakhaye. Now we have pranama here. Pura kumbhakare chakhaye. Javan manastyajit kaman svanasarga nirikshana. Yato yato nisarathim manakama hatam brahmat. Tattastata upahritya Ridi nundhyachanar buddha. Translation. While continuously staring at the tip of the nose, a learned yogi practices the breathing exercises through the technical means known as puraka, kumbhaka, and rejaka, controlling inhalation and exhalation and then stopping them both. So puraka is inhalation, kumbhaka is holding the breath, and rejaka is exhalation. So in this way, the yogi restricts his mind from material attachments and gives up all mental desires. As soon as the mind, being defeated by lusty desires, drifts towards feelings of sense gratification, the yogi should immediately bring it back and arrest it within the core of his heart. Purport. The practice of yoga is concisely explained herein. When this practice of yoga is perfect, one sees the Supersoul, the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the core of one's heart. However, in Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord says, Yoginanapi sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shadavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataham. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in a transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. The devotee can immediately become a perfect yogi because he practices keeping Krishna constantly within the core of his heart. This is another way to practice yoga easily. The Lord says, Man manabha mad bhakto mad yaj mam namaskuru. Always think of me and become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. If one practices devotional service by always keeping Krishna within the core of his heart, manmana, he immediately becomes a first-class yogi. Furthermore, keeping Krishna within the mind is not a difficult task for the devotee. For an ordinary man in the bodily concept of life, the practice of yoga may be helpful, but one who immediately takes to devotional service can immediately become a perfect yogi without difficulty. So both the purpose of yoga, Ashtanga Hatha Yoga, and purpose of devotional service of Bhakti Yoga is the same, to fix the mind completely on the Supreme Lord, to achieve samadhi of constant 24/7 remembrance of Krishna. This is the purpose. So those who are yogis, who are not that lucky to be devotees, they do it in this mechanical way, which is difficult. It requires quite some austerity, quite some tapasya. One has to eat very little. You cannot, eat 3 times a day or rice sabji dal and practice this sort of yoga. No, one has to eat very, very sparingly, very little bit of something to keep the body and mind, and then meditate in this way. Otherwise, he will just fall asleep. Of course, we as devotees, we think we can eat as much as we want, and it won't affect us. But the thing is that too much eating affects the mind, and then it's difficult to chant. You just try chanting with a full stomach and compare it to chanting in the morning on an empty stomach. You will see the difference. It's much more difficult. The mind is much more disturbed. And sometimes when you fast, for example, for a day, the mind becomes very, very, clear. And it's much easier to focus, unless you're starving or you're troubled by some bodily discomfort. So yeah, that's why the topmost devotees, the advanced devotees, Mahabhagavatas, they are the topmost yogis because they are always constantly absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. So they're in full samadhi, which every yogi wants to attain. And Srila Prabhupada is the best, example of such perfect bhakti yogi. So we also want to become bhakti yogi whose mind is always absorbing Krishna. And the primary process for this that we have is chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra and hearing about Krishna from Bhagavatam and other Shastras. So Shravanam Kirtan is our process. More we do it, it will be easier to dissolve the mind in Krishna. Constant remembrance of Krishna. This is what is needed. That becomes samadhi. If you constantly remember, and that to that stage one comes by constant chanting. It's called Kirtaniya Sadahari. Then you can actually do Manmana Bad Bhakto. You can always remember Krishna if you constantly chant about him. All right, let's continue. Nana Shrimani, you'd like to read once more?
Okay, Prabhu. Okay. Eva mabhyasyata chitam kalan piyasa yatehe anisam tasya nirvanam yatyadana vanivat. When the yogi regularly practices in this way, in a short time his heart becomes fixed and free from disturbance, like a fire without flames or smoke. Purport. Nirvana means the cessation of all material desires. Sometimes desirelessness is understood to imply an end to the workings of the mind, but this is not possible. The living entity has senses, and if the senses stopped working, the living entity would no longer be a living entity. He would be exactly like stone or wood. This is not possible because he is living, he is Nitya and Chetana, eternally sentient. For those who are not very advanced, the practice of yoga is recommended in order to stop the mind from being agitated by material desires. But if one fixes his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, his mind naturally becomes peaceful very soon. This peace is described in Bhagavad Gita 5.29. Bhoktaram yagna dapasam sarvaloka maeshvaram suvidam sarva bhutanam gnadva mam shantim richati. If one can understand Krishna as the supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor of everything, and the supreme friend of everyone, one is established in peace and is free from material agitation. However, for one who cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the practice of yoga is recommended. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Nirvana means peace.
So yes, so yoga and bhakti yoga, these are two processes, and both are meant to elevate us and bring us to the state of Krishna consciousness. Just the normal Ashtanga yoga or Hatha yoga is for those who do not possess bhakti. It's called bhakti unmukhi sukriti. They don't have the mercy of devotees and Krishna to become devotees. So that's why they have to practice this mechanical process, but it is also good. So when we see somebody, interested in yoga, but not just for the health purposes or for stretching or like that, but those who are generally interested as the process of self improvement and self realization, who are interested also in the meditative aspect, it's a good sign that this person is receptive, that this person is looking for something higher, and these people are then good receptacles of for giving them Krishna in the form of books, prasadam, because they're already on a part of searching for something higher. And then if devotee comes and gives them something Krishna conscious, it will create this bhakti unmukhi sukriti. So even if in this life they don't become devotees, Gradually that secret will accumulate, and then the next or one of the next lives, then we become devotees because they're already searching. But the main point is that they're searching for truth. They're searching for something higher. They're not satisfied with just eating, sleeping, going for work all day, and enjoying senses. Now they want something more. So this is good sign. That means that soul became a little bit awakened, and that this soul is receptive to the spiritual teachings, including the teachings about Krishna. Okay. What is the time? Okay, we still have time. Santirupa Mother, you like to read?
Yes, Prabhu. कामादिभिरनाविद्धं प्रशान्ताखिलवृत्तियत् चित्तं ब्रह्मसुखस्पृष्टं नैवोत्तिष्ठेत कर्हिचित्. Translation. When one's consciousness is uncontaminated by material lusty desires, it becomes calm and peaceful in all activities, for one is situated in eternal blissful life. Once situated on that platform, one does not return to materialistic activities. Purport. Brahma Sukha Sprishtam is also described in Bhagavat Gita 18.54. Brahmabhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. One who is transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In this situation, he begins transcendental activities or devotional service to the Lord. Generally, once elevated to the transcendental platform of Brahma Sukha, transcendental bliss, one never comes down. But if one does not engage in devotional service, there is a chance of his returning to the material platform. Aruhya krichena param padam tata patanti adho anadrita yushmad angraya. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32. One may rise to the platform of Brahma Sukha, transcendental bliss, but even from that platform, one may fall down to the material platform if he does not engage himself in devotional service. So in this verse, it is said that one can become peaceful or achieve eternal blissful life when one follows the right path. And Srila Prabhupada is saying that he's quoting the Bhagavad Gita shlok, and in that Krishna is clearly saying that you can be blissful and peaceful once you recognize the Supreme Personality Godhead and engage in his devotional service. So the main thing is whatever you do is devotional service, unless it is done in lovingly for the Lord, everything else is useless. And there is always a chance of fall down. So that is the main thing, I think.
Thank you. Yes, so the Brahma Bhuta platform, this is the stage above the modes of material nature. So yogi who is practicing Ashtanga, Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, he can achieve that Brahma Bhuta platform. And of course, a devotee who is practicing Bhakti Yoga can also achieve that stage and higher stage. But the point that on that platform one clearly sees that he's not the body, he's not the mind, that he's not affected by anything material, he's not affected by modes of material nature. And then naturally he becomes prasanatma, he becomes joyful because he's establishing his position as the soul. So this is also possible through Ashtanga yoga, although it's more difficult. Recently, I saw one book on pranayama, a very old book called Kumbhaka Padati, which gives hundreds of different pranayamas, method of different pranayamas, and in some of them, the result, the process, the technique is described, and then the result of practice of that particular pranayama is given. And for one, I remember particularly that one completely conquers lust if he practices that pranayama perfectly. He conquers lust so much so that even if the beautiful woman embraces the yogi, he will not be attracted. But of course, he should stay away from beautiful women. But that was the result described in that Kumbhaka Padati Yoga Shastra. Of course, we have example of Haridas Thakur, who was tempted by prostitute, and because he was a perfect yogi, chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, 24 hours, 300,000 names, holy names. He was also on Brahma Buddha platform, and he was absolutely not affected by charms of that lady. Came to tempt him, to test him. And on another occasion, it was actually Maya Devi herself who came to do this. And then she bowed down to Haridas Thakur when he passed the test. Okay, little more time is left. Gunaraj Prabhu once more.
या प्रव्रज्य गृहात् पूर्वं त्रिवर्गावपणात् पुनः यदि सेवत तान् भिक्षु स वै वान्तसि अपत्रपः. Translation. One who accepts the sannyasa order gives up the three principles of materialistic activities in which one indulges in the field of household life, namely religion, economic development, and sense gratification. One who first accepts sannyasa but then returns to such materialistic activities is to be called a vantasi, or one who eats his own vomit. He is indeed a shameless person. Purport. Materialistic activities are regulated by the institution of Varnashrama Dharma. Without Varnashrama Dharma, materialistic activities constitute animal life. Yet, even in human life, while observing the principles of Varna and Ashrama, such as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa, one must ultimately accept Sannyasa, the renounced order, for only by the renounced order can one be situated in Brahma Sukha, or transcendental bliss. In Brahma Sukha, one is no longer attracted by the lusty desires. Indeed, when one is no longer disturbed, especially by lusty desires for sexual indulgence, he is fit to become a sannyasi. Otherwise, one should not accept the sannyasa order. If one accepts sannyasa at an immature stage, there is every possibility of his being attracted by women and lusty desires, and thus again becoming a so-called grahastha or a victim of woman. Such a person is most shameless, and he is called vantasi, or one who eats that which he has already vomited. He certainly leads a condemned life. In our Krishna consciousness movement, it is advised, therefore, that the sannyasis and brahmacharis keep strictly aloof from the association of women, so that there will be no chance of their falling down again as victims of lusty desires. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura comments, Trivargavapanat means from the house in which there is complete planting of Artha, Dharma and Kama. One who previously renouncing the house later enjoys household dharmas, Tan is a shameless eater of vomit. So, yeah, the main emphasis is that before taking sannyasa, one should be very steady in his observation and observing the principles of spiritual activities. If he is not able to maintain his rules and regulations strictly, he is not supposed to take up the sannyasa. Otherwise, he may definitely fall down. That is the injection. And that becomes now it's more condemned, because once you leave that the stage where you left everything and then again you are going to accept all those things which we have rejected earlier, it becomes a condemned activity. So that's why it is always said that sannyasis and brahmacharis should be always away from the association of women.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, in history of ISKCON, we
Yeah.
had so many sannyas fall downs. Even during Prabhupada's times, I mean, he was disappointed, but then what he could do, he would again engage the devotee, and he just wanted to keep them in Krishna consciousness. Even if they left the sannyas ashram, they can still continue. But the point is that he should have not taken the sannyas in the first place, because he was not fit, and Prabhupada was aware that they were not qualified, but still for the sake of preaching, he wanted to push the movement to spread Krishna consciousness. He was giving to unqualified. And he said, I know that they're not qualified, but for the sake of preaching, I'm giving them. And then at one point, when too many of them fell, he said, no, from now, no more sannyas. He didn't want to give any more sannyas anymore. And then in 80s, we had also quite some fall downs, and then ISKCON became more strict, and this sannyas committee was instituted, and yeah, now one who wants sannyas, he has to go through very rigorous process. He needs 10 letters of recommendation, and he needs to go for the course, sannyas course, and so many other things. He needs to travel here and there and show what he's doing and things like that. It became also very bureaucratic, but for the purpose of stopping these shameful fall downs. Somebody told me that in Madhva Sampradaya, it's something very rare. They have some sannyasis there, but almost never happens. They are trained since the childhood. They're sannyasis, and they never fall down. And our sannyasis, they have not much lifelong training. They're just normal devotees, and somehow or other, somebody gives them idea. Even sometimes Prabhupada would, give them idea, and they become sannyasi. They just take sannyas, and then because they're much interacting a lot with ladies, it happens very easily to fall down. So okay, maybe at this point, Shailesh Prabhu can ask us. I'll stop the recording. Just let me stop the share. Yeah, I'll stop the recording.